on the more strategic side, I know you mentioned supporting NATO is a really important component of ensuring not only that Ukraine has a future, but also really Europe has a peaceful future. But one of the arguments that has been presented by not necessarily pro-Russian people, but sometimes people who are skeptical of United States intervention and really international institutions is that NATO expansion contributed to this war, to this act of aggression. And I was wondering, what were some of the responses that you received from the people on the ground when that kind of narrative came up? How would you respond to that? And how can we make sure that these institutions aren't being just straight up lied about?
Mm-hmm. Well, the people that I worked with talked about that narrative as um, like one of the sort of fake, the fake red lines that Russia extends, and basically um, they would say that like it's in Russian DNA to be aggressive. And I don't know if you remember a man named Salim in the book, but he talks about how Russia uses violence and Russia uses aggression because it's so weak. It's morally weak. And it should be viewed as such. Another person that another story that I share in the book is a man who um, referred to President Putin as being the emperor with no clothes,
Mm,
right? Like in the sense that um, there is a tendency to overestimate Russia and underestimate Ukraine.
mm,
And if you think about like all of the efforts that Ukrainians have put towards defending themselves, I'm not sure Americans fully appreciate the depth of commitment that Ukrainians feel towards their country and one another, right? Like there's all of these ideas that they're just going to give up and and disappear, and I don't find that compelling, and I also don't find really any form of appeasement to be compelling. So, okay, say that NATO expansion hadn't occurred. Would that have changed Russia's desire? No. Then people said, oh well, if Russia can keep control over Crimea, then he won't make any further territorial incursions. The war will stop with Crimea. We don't want World War III. Let's see if he can just be appeased with Crimea. No, no, that didn't happen, right? He just keeps going. So it's in the, um, you know, they have a expansionist, um, they are operating under an expansionist logic, and they do not respect territorial boundaries. So it doesn't really matter, like everything leading up to that. There is no appeasing this imperial appetite with like a little chunk of territory or a little agreement, like we won't do this or we won't do that, right? I don't think that there's any appeasing Russian aggression. It has to be stopped.
it's one of the things where I feel like a lot of people don't learn from their history in terms of how we've seen people use almost like blood and soil rhetoric surrounding territorial expansion. Like Chamberlain said, "Oh, Hitler's not going to expand. He's not going to. We're just going to have this peace in our time," and then it completely fell apart. And this is the thing that where I look at it at NATO expansion, and people seem to have it mixed up. NATO expanded because of Russian aggression in the past. It did not lead to Russian aggression.